Welcome back to C1 Risk Training. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the different ways we score vendors in the platform for you. Once the assessment has been submitted and reviewed, you've assigned all the findings, you're going to get an assessment score based upon the responses of the vendor and the risk scores that you've associated to those questions. And then you're also going to get an overall vendor risk score, which is a residual risk score, effectively, once those issues have been mapped to the risk register and connected back to that vendor. So let's take a look in the system and show you what we mean. Okay, so here we are in the platform. I'm just going to go to our vendor, the one that we've been working on throughout this training segment. And here we are. And now, as you know, we've got this dashboard here. But before we go there, let's go to the assessments and take a look at what we've done. So we did our security review. This is the assessment that the vendor themselves responded to. And if you remember, we had 4 findings that we're now tracking in here. And then each of those findings has been attached to a risk register, one or more risk registers. So again, now when we go back into the asset record, we can see that from the dashboard perspective. But before we get there, just going to go back to the assessment for a second and show you the scoring there. So we also have an assessment score as well for you. So based upon the number of questions that are answered and how you score them, again, you can see those scores. Generally, that's a negative score. So when they actually get a point, that means they have a risk. So you see that scoring in the system, and then that's summarized for you here. So there were 56 questions in this assessment. Each one carried a potential risk point of 1, so 56 maximum score. The answer score was 4 here, and there were 4 issues, as you remember. So 4 findings then, and that gave us a total risk score here that is worked out by the answer score divided by the maximum available score times 100. Which then gave us that risk rating of low. Now, just a reminder, that risk rating is based upon your own risk policies. So again, in this administration tab, we can go into a risk policy here. We can just add this, see how you just do add new. I'm going to cancel out of that and just show it to you here. So we can add what we classify as low, medium, high risk. Again, that can be any level of classifications you want. Low, medium, medium, low, medium, high, high, very high. And then you give a number to that or a value to that, which will then report back to all of your assessments. So when you come into the assessment, that's why we've created a risk rating of low, because 7, according to your risk policies, anywhere between 0 and 33 is low. Therefore, this is a low score. So that's your assessment score. However, this is not truly your vendor risk score. For that, then we do want to go back to that dashboard. So again, based on the fact that we've got these risks now associated to our vendor, so let's just show you those here. These all come from the issues that we're also tracking against the vendor. And then the internal controls that we've also got that we know that are built to these risks. What we can say is we have a vendor risk score, average residual risk score, which comes from the residual risk scores from the risks. An impact score that comes from your business impact analysis, so that you did on the vendor earlier, and that assurance score from controls. And then we're tracking all of our findings, of course. And we also have this probability heat map for you where you can see, again, this shows you the risk profile, the breach probability or the event probability for that vendor. How likely is that vendor to cause you a problem? I mean by that. As mitigation plans come in, they'll be submitted here. They'll also be tracked, and you can see the status of them. That reports back to the findings. And so, of course, this can be updated at any time. And assessments can be sent out at any time based upon the, we would say probably the value of the assets that this vendor is impacting and the risks that are incumbent upon that vendor. And we want to make sure that we update that on a regular basis. So here's your vendor risk dashboard. So this is really your true vendor score. So this vendor is in the middle. and shows that we have a few findings that we're working on here. But we have some assurance because the risks that they could potentially create, we do have some controls in place ourselves to help prevent those, but we are asking them to actually provide mitigation plans and act themselves to better protect both organizations, really. So this is how we measure vendors in the platform. Again, you get that assessment score, but really what you want to look for is this overall vendor profile, which comes from a few additional steps once you've reviewed that assessment. So that concludes our training for today. Thank you very much.